West Tigers, we have got a major rumor around Jahream Bula, and my goodness, does it look promising. But we also got to break down some proposed changes to the NRL and how that could affect the West Tigers, but also affect the greater game of footy that we all love. And so we're going to be breaking all that down, plus a little bit more today. But before we do that, my name is Geordie, a diehard West Tigers fan who lives and breathes the sport. If you love the Tigers and just footy in general as much as I do, smash that like and subscribe button, pick up an NRL Deep Dive tee, and let me know your favorite thing about Jahream Bula and if you would keep him around. But before we talk about him and the proposed news around him, let's talk about the proposed news around the NRL changes. Now, this is via NRL Central, which is, I believe, a very trusted source among social media when it comes to NRL news and breaking and all that stuff. And then this is per Code Sports. Now, the NRL has kind of been talking a little bit about changing it up, especially as we welcome in the Bears here soon, Papua New Guinea in 2028, and then pushing for a 20th team in 2030. And so what we're looking at possibly is seasons cut from 27 rounds to 19 under a future 20-team competition. That would mean buys would be scrapped entirely, which I don't think I like the sound of that. Then we would have standalone State of Origin window, so NRL would be paused while Origin is played. I can kind of get behind that just because having key players out like Jahream Bula, or even if Terrell May made the squad, having those guys out can definitely be a big hindrance for teams. And I would think, having a window where we could go play rep games and not have any sort of kind of disturbance within our normal season would honestly be not a bad idea. Now, this one's a big one to me. NRL considering a conference system, so very NFL, very American, to boost that rivalry game and revenue. And so being in America, being involved in American sports myself now, I've seen the good and the bad of that. And so for anyone who doesn't know, this is kind of how an American NFL system conference works. So what we have is NFL split into two kind of conferences. We got the AFC, which is your American Football Conference. Then we got the NFC, which is your National Football Conference. And they're kind of broken up into four divisions. You got North, South, East, and West, which obviously have your 16 teams. Teams mostly play within their division, then within their conference, and then within a handful of cross-conference games, which you might see like Kansas City Chiefs go up against someone like the LA Rams or something like that. And so at the end of each regular season, they kind of crown their own champion. So you kind of have your own grand final, which is your AFC and your NFC champ. So what that looks like if you're the number one seed, if you're say 10-0 at the end of season, and then you go up against the next best of your conference. And so that could look like us and let's just say Bulldogs, West Tigers and Bulldogs. We go up, and whoever wins that game at the end of the regular season is crowned the champ of that conference. And then from there, they pick the top teams and then do your playoffs, right? And so it's almost like two parallel leagues that connect only at the Super Bowl for NFL. And so for us, it'd be our grand final. Now, this is how I think a conference system would be a good thing for the NRL, and I'll give you how it could not be a good thing. Rivalries, I think, would become a lot stronger. Like if we were to split into two conferences, let's just say New South Wales conference and then a national/Queensland conference, teams would play each other more often. There would be more derbies, more consistent matchups. Storylines would definitely build more and more and more in each year and as history goes on, right? And this is how we get those milking rivalries like the Cowboys, Eagles, or the Packers, Bears, Detroit, and Chicago, things like that, like these big games that, people look forward to each and every year, which I think we do have, but this, I think, would amplify that just a little bit more. Then we come look at scheduling, looking at our draw. So right now, the NRL schedule, I think, is a little unbalanced. We've seen a first-year AI draw, and there's teams that have been played once, twice. There's buys in round one when others shouldn't be having that. We know who we're talking about. And I think a conference system would create a more controlled, predictable schedule. Looking at the NFL schedule, it's always legitimate, and it's always fairly balanced and equal as much as it can be. There's going to be a lot less travel if you're doing like a New South Wales team and then a Queensland national team. There would be a lot less travel for us as a club. Then there would just be more logical season structure, which I think is not always a bad thing. And then number 3, we got bigger finals products. So if we had 2 separate finals that lead into this conference champion versus conference champion grand final, right? This could be marketed as 2 mini grand finals plus the big one, right? So you might have North Queensland Cowboys going up against the Brisbane Broncos. You might have West Tigers going up against Parramatta Eels, and then you come into the playoff, and then West Tigers might be going up against North Queensland Cowboys like 05, but you've had this rivalry, and you kind of been seeing the ebb and flow of the best teams on each conference come and meet together. So that could be something pretty sick that would be well marketed as well. The NFL's conference championships are massive. I know that. I buy all the merch from Detroit Lions because it's huge. Sometimes as big as a Super Bowl in hype. I think we could definitely see a huge market up, and I think that's a great thing. I think more people should be watching the sport, especially as we're getting into Vegas and things like that. Man, it's only getting bigger and better. Number 4 is expansion becomes easier. Once an 18-team or a 20-team NRL, a conference system makes it easier to add teams without ruining travel or scheduling. You simply just drop new teams into the right conference, and it's kind of just click and go. Like, it's just drop and drag and that type of thing, copy paste. It's really easy, it's really smooth, especially as we look at 2030 ahead at being a 20-team NRL. If that goes through, this could be the answer to all the scheduling issues. Now, there obviously is a lot of bad things when it does come to a conference system, and for the NRL, I think we'd see a huge loss in the traditional ladder integrity. And honestly, man, I remember on Easter, like, my mum would buy me the footy egg. Anyone else get that footy egg from Coles or Woolies? And it had the ladder on the side that you could eat the egg and then have the ladder, and then you can move it up and down. It's like bits of cardboard. That, to me, is the best thing ever. And so we would see loss of that. You wouldn't have like first best team, second best team. Conference system breaks down like kind of differently. It's based off points. It's based off different rounds. And then you might have better teams in other conferences miss out on a higher seed just because of the way that it all works out. And that already happens consistently in the NFL, and I see it all the time. Great teams don't make it because there's other greater teams out there in different conferences, or there's worse teams in that conference, and it's just, it can become a mess that way. But I think it could work, but that is definitely one thing I'm not sure about. Number 2 is imbalanced strength. Like, what if all strong teams end up in one conference, man? Like, what if that is the case? What happens if one side becomes NRL East, the easy conference, versus the other side where it's NRL West, the group of death, and it's just a bloodbath, and then all these bloodbath teams make it to the playoffs, and then you kind of got like the not so great teams, the Titans, the Knights, these folks here, and then the playoffs is just that, and it's just going to become very consistently one-sided conference, right? That, I think, could definitely ruin any competitive fairness, and that could be a problem we run into. Number 3, some rivalries will die if the conferences aren't drawn perfectly. I think we'll see rivalries vanish. For example, North Queensland Cowboys versus West Tigers. I don't know if we would see that in the conference unless they came up with some sort of conference that would allow that. That's a big rivalry game for us, right? And so it's also a nostalgic game. We would probably see that go and like Para, Manly, that type of thing. They would only play once every 1 to 2 years, depending on seeds and all of that stuff. And so the NFL does deal with this, and so some historic rivalries just don't happen often anymore, and I just worry that that could be a thing. Number 4 is finals look less meaningful because we do have more, in quotations, more grand finals. You have Team A versus Team B, and then you have the big playoffs, and that's that. And I don't know, man. Like, it's very good and bad. It's just kind of a flip of the coin. So I want to hear from you guys. Would you be all for a conference kind of schedule, a conference layout, a format like that, like the NFL? It definitely does make for great marketing. It makes for great rivalry, but then we do see some historical stuff moved and some things like the ladder change. But overall, we could see some different ebb and flow of the different teams, and we might see other teams rise up that don't normally rise up. It could be something cool, it could be something new, something fresh, something different, but it also could be the thing that could very well mess us up. So I don't know how I feel on it yet, but I wouldn't be mad about it if we seriously do look at that. And so with that, we want to finish it with the West Tigers on a great note and some great news. Again, this is just a post on Instagram that I found by NRL Nostradamus predictions. This guy posts break-in, rumors, predictions, all that stuff. And this is a news alert. Take this with a grain of salt. I don't know if this is fully 100% accurate, but like I said, I find rumors, I find predictions, we break them down around on this channel. But they say Buller is set to stay a Tiger and sign a long-term deal. I've not only seen this from him, but NRL RL updates on Facebook on a page called West Tigers Fans for Life and West Tigers Will Never Die. I've seen different people saying this, and so I am very intrigued. If this is true, what could we be looking at? Is it $600,000 or is it $900,000 over 5 years or something like that? But either way, Jahream Bula sounds like hashtag keep Jahream. I love that silly Sanua. Sounds like he's staying, baby, and I'm so pumped about that. He needs to be here. Jerome has made that extremely clear, and I want to know your thoughts. Are you team Jahream? And if so, what do you think the predicted contract's going to be, money and year-wise? I'm going with 650 or 700, somewhere in that ballpark, and we're looking at like a 5 to 7 year deal. I think we're going on a long deal here. I think Benji wants him around. We see a lot of potential. I see a lot of potential for him to kind of be in that halfback or in that 5'8" role. That's just me. Come at me, whatever. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But Tigers fans, I am so pumped to be doing this journey with you guys, and it's going to be a great bloody year. And man, there's going to be so much to happening. I can't wait to break it all down with you each and every day as we do daily uploads on this channel. Now, tell a mate you love them, check in on them, and I'll see you tomorrow on the next video.